Hey, my name is Forrest, welcome back. So in this video, I make a real-time TypeScript web app, which I'm very stoked about. That web app is a live weekly dev trivia game, with the first match starting today at 12 p.m. Eastern Time on the hackershideout.com. And there will be a new game every single Wednesday at noon. But that may change over time, or if nobody plays the game, then I'll just deprecate it and we won't have it anymore. I hope that doesn't happen. Anyway, just look at the countdown timer on the website to see when the next game starts. And if you want to play, just know that you have to be in the lobby when the game starts. If you try to enter the lobby after the game has already started, you won't be able to. That is a feature I'd like to add in the future, however. Oh yeah, and this first game is the beta test. Something will break, I just know it. So if you do encounter an issue, the codebase is open source on GitHub. Just create an issue and I'll get around to fixing it, or feel free to try to fix it yourself and submit a pull request. I will be reviewing them and maintaining this code. It's also a very easy project to clone and whip up with the database and all. Just follow the instructions provided in the repo. The app is built with Vite, React, TypeScript, Tailwind, and something new to me at least, Convex, which is a backend as a service that allows me to whip up a database in just two commands, one to install Convex and the other npx convex dev that creates the project's backend and database. As you can see with the new project here, it's empty now, but soon it'll be filled with tables containing our data and functions for mutations, queries, and actions, all done via TypeScript. And Convex is the sponsor of today's video, but more on them later. Let's take a look at where this project began. The initial flowchart had humble beginnings, with just a home page where you can navigate to the trivia game. But things changed ever so slightly. I believe this is a classic case of scope creep. Now, the homepage allows you to navigate to the trivia lobby, but only if you're signed in. In the lobby, when the countdown strikes 0, you'll be thrown into the trivia game with the first question ready to answer. After all questions have been cycled through, the game ends and we're taken to the results of that game, where then you're able to go back to the homepage and do it all again the following week. So let's start at the top, the homepage. My initial drawing is very similar to what we ended up with. The title, description, a countdown timer until the next game, which displays a button to join the game if there's less than 30 minutes on the timer, instructions, and the leaderboard from the last game. The title, description, and instructions are very straightforward. They're just paragraphs with just a little bit of Tailwind styling, although I should mention that I do have some global styles in here as well. But the others are a little more complex. The countdown timer is its own component, and within it has a few functions. Since our games will be held at Wednesday at noon Eastern Time, I made a function to do that. This function is then used in our other function, getGameStatus, which we store in next Wednesday, which is then used to find the difference between now and next Wednesday. If the game is within 30 minutes of starting, our game status will be changed from not started to about to start. The game status will then be changed to live once the game starts and remains in that state for 30 minutes, where then it'll change back to not started. And as you can see here, what's returned is what sets our game status. The game status is then used in a variety of ways, like changing the text on the home page and displaying the join the game button so people can join the lobby if the game is about to start or live. The leaderboard is also its own component in the trivia results.tsx file, but for some reason I decided to write this block of code twice, instead of just importing trivia results of the most recent game, which is better practice, but here we are. This code starts all the way back with this query. It retrieves the most recent game's information and maps through the participants' games and scores to store in and return as leaderboard. That's for last week's leaderboard. You can see a similar query here, but instead of getting the most recent game, it just uses the current game's game ID. That one is for the results page that you see after the game. And that information is mapped through to display each player name, their score, and their rank, plus I added counts up for this little animation here. But we can't retrieve that information if we don't store that information. And while in Convex, schema.ts is not necessary, I like to use it. It acts as a breakpoint for me. But the schema for trivia participants table you can see here in our Convex project via the dashboard. Each participant of a game contains their unique user ID, a game ID for every game they've participated in, their name, score, and answers, and the answer info. Now to the next page on our flow, the trivia lobby. This is where it all starts to get fun. However, to enter the lobby, you must be signed in, as you can see in our main.tsx file. Authroute says if is loaded and not signed in, return navigate to home. And I just realized I skipped over a very important part of this project, authentication. It wasn't in the initial plans, but I found it to be necessary. In the Convex docs, there are a handful of ways to implement authentication. Convex has its own, albeit in beta at the time of this video, and I've used Auth0 in the past, and while I really liked it, I have never tried Clerk, so figured I'd give it a whirl. And it turned out to be quite simple too. I just followed the docs. Sign up, create an app, new Convex template, create auth.config.ts, paste, deploy, npm install et clerk react, and configure the files with Clerk. Now we can adjust the UI based on auth state. And now that you're signed in, you can enter the lobby. So first, the code checks to see if you're a valid user and if you've already joined a game that's in the waiting state. If so, you enter the lobby for that game. If you haven't yet joined a game, it runs the join or create game function, which says if there's an available game, and again, you haven't already joined a game, then join game. Join game is another mutation that, does a bunch of stuff here, including making sure you haven't already joined the game. Again, but namely, the join game mutation inserts you as a participant into our game, which allows you to enter the lobby and then the game once it starts. Simple. However, what if there is no available game? Well, you're kicked out of this if statement and met with the message waiting to enter lobby. You're waiting for me, the creator, to create a new game, which is the else portion of this previous if statement. If no available game and is creator, create game. Once the game is created, you're automatically entered into the lobby, and the lobby contains a simpler version of our countdown timer, a list of players waiting with you in the lobby, and waiting for the game to start, unless you're me, the creator, where I have a button that starts the game. But wait, what about the chat function? We see it on the page here, but not in the code. That's because we want the chat to be available in Trivia Lobby and Trivia Game, and all of that is done in our main layout.tsx file. This file contains our header, which has dev trivia linking to the homepage, profile linking to our profile, and the user button if signed in, aka authenticated, and the sign in button if signed out, aka unauthenticated. Below the header, we have our outlet, which is a part of React Router, which changes this chunk based on what path we're on, and the chat below that. But the chat is only shown again if we're in the Trivia Lobby or in Trivia Game. And the chat is quite something, but here's the overview. When we send a message, a mutation adds it to the chat messages table. We query those messages and display them based on the most recent. And then we remove any messages that are older than 5 minutes. I've also decided to use an npm package called obscenity to disallow bad words. Now the trivia game, the meat and potatoes. Where do I even start? Well, by clicking this button, of course, that starts the game, and all participants are navigated to trivia game/game ID, where the first of the 10 questions and its available choices is displayed via this query. How the game works is fairly straightforward. You answer the question, submit the answer, are shown whether your answer was correct or not, then you enter the review phase to see the correct answer for 3 seconds and on to the next question. But the code behind it is a bit more intricate than you may think. For simply displaying the choices for you to select, we map through A, B, C, and D choices and display them as buttons. When you click one, that calls handle selected answer to set that choice as your answer, and we handle the UI as such. Selected choices are blue. If submitted, we lock it in by reducing the opacity to 50 to serve as a visual cue and make cursor not allowed, so you can't click the buttons anymore. Once your answer is submitted, if it is correct, it'll be shown as green, and if it's incorrect, it'll be shown as red. The submit button is disabled if you haven't selected an answer, have already submitted your answer, or are in the review phase. When you click the submit button, it calls handle submit answer, which stores this related information and stores your points based on the time left. 7 seconds left equals 7 points. When the question timer strikes 0, we're moved to the review phase for 3 seconds, and after that 3 seconds, we move to the next question with 10 seconds on the clock. This is how we display our timer, this is how we display the correct answer in text, and here we query our participants and map through them to display their name and their current score. Pretty cool stuff if you ask me. And I would walk you through the results code, but we already did that when we went over the leaderboard. So all that's left is the profile, some nice and easy code to understand to finish it off. We get the authorized user's information, which is our information for the user we're logged in as, display our image, name, and email. Wait, I don't recall seeing our name on there. Okay, there we go. And below that, we just display our game history, date of the game, score, the amount of total questions I answered, and the amount I answered correctly. This has honestly been one of the most enjoyable projects I've built in a long time. I hope to see you join us at the next Dev Trivia match when the countdown timer strikes 0. Just go to thehackershideout.com and enter the lobby before the game starts. I'll see you there.